Today we're talking about the update to the loan forgiveness rules, the PPP loan forgiveness rules. There was an interim rule put out on May 22nd, and we're going to go over that. Again, this is PPP loan forgiveness rules and an update to those rules, all right? So if you are not already subscribed to this channel, go ahead and click the button below, be subscribed, because these updates keep coming. We just got the application and now we've got some additional guidance, and we're gonna keep going over these as soon as we can, all right? So make sure you're subscribed so you are keeping up to date with all of the latest news. All right, so let's just dive right in. What I'm gonna do is I'm basically just gonna flip through the pages and we're gonna talk about the things that I think you need to know about, because some of this stuff we've talked about in the loan forgiveness application because that came out and we went through that already. However, there is some additional guidance in here that I thought you guys might want to be aware of. So the first thing that I wanted you to know is that the loan forgiveness process might take a little bit of time. All right, I don't want you guys thinking that you can just apply and then within like 30 days you're gonna know how much is forgiven, because I just don't think that's gonna be realistic. Keep in mind, all of everyone is going to be applying to their banks to get these loans forgiven. And there are timelines in this document that I want to just share with you. So your bank basically has 60 days from the time they get it from you to send it to the SBA. And remember that the bank looks at it first and then the SBA looks at it, all right? So we're going to apply for forgiveness and then they have 60 days to give it to the SBA. The SBA has 90 days to make a determination. So we could be looking at, I don't know, potentially close to the end of the year before you hear a determination on your loan forgiveness. And that might mean that you need to start repaying on your loan before you know whether or not it's going to be forgiven. So if that is the case, they have included something in here that's saying if you do get to like where you've already made some payments on your principal or your interest and that amount ends up being forgiven, that they will repay you back for that, okay? But that's just something to note. So you might come up on your 6 months, because remember the payments were deferred for 6 months, and you might say, wait, no, I don't have to pay because I don't know about my forgiveness yet. Now, you might have to pay, so just keep that in mind, okay? This is all the more reason for you to be on your documentation right away so that you can apply for forgiveness as soon as possible once your covered period is over, because that's gonna get the ball rolling for you, okay? The other thing that I want you to, we touched on in the first update about the loan application, but I'm gonna just hit it home here, is that when we get into determining a covered period for our payroll, we have two options. We either have 8 weeks from the date of disbursement, or we have an alternative payroll cover period. And so this is saying that the alternative payroll covered period, this is the language they're using, okay? The first day of the first payroll cycle in the covered period. So the first day of the first payroll cycle in the covered period, that would be the first day of your alternative payroll covered period. The other thing that it gave some clarity on is if you are in a situation where you have many of your work days are in the covered period, but your actual disbursement of the payroll is multiple days after, they are saying in here that it is okay. You can include paid payroll and incurred payroll in your 8-week period, okay? So paid means it's actually been cash out disbursed and paid, and then incurred means that the employees have worked, or like they have been scheduled, if they're not actually working and you're paying them to sit at home, then the schedule that they're on, that if it's in the covered period, then you can pay them for those hours, okay? And it's okay if the cash disbursement is after your covered payroll date, just as long as it's not before the next payroll. They just don't want you including that for forgiveness and then never actually paying it out to them. So that is one thing you want to, that they kind of specified here, which is nice, because a lot of people were, thinking, oh, I've got to like change my payroll date and do all this crazy stuff and change the whole thing to make sure we get that cash payment in before the end of the covered period. But this is specifically saying, no, it's okay. You don't have to do that, just as long as it's paid before the next payroll date. Okay. Now, the other thing that is very, very, very important is if you are considering this alternative covered period, they are only allowing it to people who have biweekly payroll and less, which means if it's more frequent. So if you are on a weekly or a bi-weekly payroll, you can select an alternative payroll covered period. However, if you are on semi-monthly or monthly payroll, you're not allowed to elect alternative payroll cover period. That's kind of a big deal because I know some people were trying to sort of play that game. What they're trying to do is they're trying to keep the alternative payroll cover period as close as possible to the covered period. Okay, so that's why they're saying for the ones that are just off slightly, like they're just going to the next week or the next 2 weeks, it's not going to materially change the forgiveness amount that much. They just don't want this shifting a super big time period away from the original covered period. Okay, so I think that's why they're not allowing the semi-monthly and the monthly. But for semi-monthly and monthly, you still should be able to get in 4 pay periods in the semi-monthly, and you should be able to get in 2 pay periods for monthly because of that paid versus incurred thing that we just talked about, where you might have incurred some hours through the end of your cover period, but maybe they didn't actually get cash paid out. That's going to cover your bum on that. Okay, so you should be fine there. I don't see anybody really getting screwed over in that situation. They've adjusted it so that it's flexible because of those different things. All right, so one of the things you guys have been asking me so much, and I know I'm not the only one who's been waiting for this guidance, but there's a question that says, are salary, wages, or commissions payments to furloughed employees, bonuses, or hazard pay during the cover period eligible for loan forgiveness? And they say yes. They say employees are allowed to get bonuses and hazard pay, and they are also allowed to be paid to compensation to furloughed employees. All right. So and then this is the intent that I wanted to read, that this is going to enable borrowers to continue paying their employees, even if those employees are not able to perform their day-to-day duties, whether due to lack of economic demand or public health conditions. Okay. And then it's also saying that hazard pay and bonuses are eligible for loan for forgiveness because they constitute a supplement to salaries or wages and thus a similar form of compensation. Okay. Very, very, very important here that we're talking about employees, and it's still limited to total 100,000 annual salary. Like we've always had to cap it, but this is not intended for owner compensation, owner hazard pay. Okay, this is talking about employees. Now, if you say, hey, technically I'm an employee because I'm an S corp and I'm paying myself a W-2, the next one's gonna say that you still can't do that. All right. But yes, you can pay people even if they're not working. Yes, you can pay them bonus pay, hazard pay for working in these conditions. All right. That is huge news because we didn't really have any formal guidance saying that that was allowable. So now we know. Okay. The next thing that's really important here is this question that says, are there caps on the amount of loan forgiveness available for owner employees and self-employed individuals' own payroll compensation? And they say yes. And we already know that for Schedule C individuals, you take 52, or you take your Schedule C line 31 net income divided by 52, multiply it times 8 to get up to what you're allowed to be forgiven for. However, you have to cap that so that's no more than $15,385 because that represents a $100,000 annualized salary. We already know that. Now, this is kind of interesting. So then it's also talking about owner employees are also capped, which this was interesting. I don't think we've really gotten this, but people have been asking, hey, as an owner, can I go ahead and just bonus myself some extra money? Can I pay myself extra? Can I do all these things? And this is basically saying no. It's saying in particular, owner employees are capped by the amount of their 2019 employee cash compensation and employer retirement and health care contributions made on their behalf. Okay, so an owner employee would be like an S corp owner who is working for their S corp, but they're paying themselves a reasonable compensation. So this is saying that you have to cap it to whatever was paid in 2019. This is really difficult for those people who thought they could just put themselves on payroll in 2020 and get that included. This is basically saying, no, that's not going to be included. Okay. That's kind of this is a little bit of a shock to me. I would think that they would still also go on payroll from Q1, because if you were paying yourself payroll in Q1, you would potentially be able to continue that on status quo. I myself gave myself a raise in 2020 because I was doing better. So I'm going to basically have to go back to my 2019 wages and use those as the forgiveness amount. That's how I'm reading this. Let me know if there's another interpretation or you guys are seeing something else, because that is how this is looking. All right. And then again, this also reiterates that for Schedule C filers, health insurance contributions and self-employed and retirement contributions for the self-employed are not included, similar with general partnerships, not includable. Okay. Okay. Now some good news. This goes to non-payroll costs. So let's talk about non-payroll costs for a second, because there has been a lot of confusion with people talking about their bills and their utilities. And they say, well, which period can I use? Because I'm getting my bill in May, but it's actually for April. Does that count because I paid it in May? Or I have past bills that I can't pay or that I wasn't able to pay before. So what they're saying here is that the non-payroll costs are eligible for forgiveness if it was paid during the covered period or incurred during the covered period and paid on or before the next regular billing date, even if the billing date is after the covered period. So what this is saying is it's saying, they're giving an example here actually. So let's say your covered period is June 1st through July 26th. So that's 56 days. So it's a full month of June and then most of July. The borrower pays its May and June electricity bill during the covered period, because let's say May ends and then maybe your billing cycle is the 10th. So June 10th, you would have paid that bill, and then July 10th, you would have paid the bill, and you covered May and June. But July 10th through July 26th is electricity that's incurred during that time, electricity bills that are liability that's incurred during that time. And it's saying the electricity bill during the covered period and pays its July electricity bill on August 10th, which is the next regular billing date. The borrower may seek forgiveness for its May and June electricity bills because they were paid during the covered period. In addition, the borrower may seek forgiveness for the portion of the July electricity bill that is during the covered period. So you could potentially take, well, actually, I think earlier I said between the 10th and the 26th, but that's not true. The first, so July 1st through July 26th was incurred during the covered period, but it was paid in August. They're saying that you can include that. So guys, this is extra money. I was not advising anybody that you could get more than 2 months of utility bills, but this is essentially saying you can get close to 3 months. So the way that this cycle is working. So look at this, see if you can go ahead and include another bill and see what you can do there. Okay. That is good. And remember, this is still subject to the 25% cap. You can't spend more than 25% of the loan amount on non-payroll costs, but most people I'm running into are having a hard time coming up with enough of these other costs. So this is a way to maybe get back a few more dollars, okay? And again, they're saying no advanced payments on mortgage obligations, no prepayments. All right, so in the update, we also talked about how they were calculating FTEs. So it is a 40-hour work week, which we already talked about. And they are offering a simplified version to calculate that, which we're going to go over in a different video. I'm not going to go over that here because I think it is too detailed for this long video. All right, so I think we covered all the stuff that really I thought we needed to highlight. We still are going to go over the FTE calculations and the salary and wage reductions, which there is a lot of text in this interim rule about those issues, but we'll cover that in those specific videos because they are so specific. So I think that covers kind of the highlights of what I thought was important, what we haven't covered already. Go ahead, I will link this interim rule in the video below so you can read it through yourself and make sure that you are identifying anything that matters to your business right now. But I wanted to give you that update. I hope it's helpful. Please stay tuned for more updates. There continues to be these updates. So make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like this video if you liked it. And then give us a feedback, give us comments. Let us know if you were surprised about anything in this interim rule. All right. Thanks, guys. Bye.